I'm going to be talking about mining. And that is one of the more tricky aspects for a lot of people. They don't really get what mining is, and I want to help you understand it. Now, as I mentioned, cryptocurrency, which is not, it's basically begins with Bitcoin, but it is by no means ends with Bitcoin. It's far more than that. It is an incredibly significant technology. And I really, really want to help you guys understand this stuff, get in on it now, and get ahead of the curve rather than trying to react to it later and play catch up. Because the earlier you get into this is one of the technologies that really has a first mover advantage, and the earlier you get into it, the better off you're going to be in numerous ways. So basically, Bitcoin mining and cryptocurrency mining, because all of the coins, basically all of them, are mined. And what this is it's essentially a metaphor. It's an analogy. And the idea, of course, is to compare it to the idea of mining for gold. And there's a lot of ways that it's analogous to, or can be compared to, gold mining or any other scarce resource. But first off, what is the purpose of mining? What does it actually achieve? And why is it that people get a reward for it and they get money for it? So in other videos, I've talked about the blockchain. And the blockchain, as you may remember, is the public ledger system that is a key element of cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. And what that is, again, is a series of transactions. Somebody sends somebody else money, somebody receives money, and so forth, for example. And those series of transactions are collected and put together into what is known as a block. That block is followed by another block, which is followed by another and another in a chain, thus blockchain. And again, it's really just a public ledger system. It just records the transactions. But the creation of that blockchain and ledger system is done by the miners. Essentially what miners are doing is they are running a piece of software which runs for Bitcoin, it originally ran on a computer. Then it had to run on any computer, and then it became something where it could run only on fairly high-end computers, and then it became something that could only run on extremely high-end computers, and then it moved on to very specialized devices that are purpose-built for mining. And the same process is happening with the other currencies. So when you're mining, whether you're using a computer or you're using a specialized mining device, you are volunteering your work or your computer's work or what have you to power that network. And we all own the network as a result, because we're the ones creating it by mining. You and I, or whoever it is that's involved in mining, all the miners are creating that network and volunteering our services for that. And that is why the miners are given a reward. Once one of those blocks is written down, and then another one is going to follow it, there's a block reward. And the block reward, it does vary from one coin to another, and it also varies over time. Part of the process to allow for Bitcoin or the other currencies to have a very steady, regulated release of coins that eventually reach some kind of, in most cases, some kind of a cap. In the case of Bitcoin, for example, there's 21 million total Bitcoins that will ever be mined and created, and never will be a single one beyond that. That's the cap, and that is the total number. So that process, the guy Satoshi Nakamoto, who created Bitcoin, he didn't want to have a situation where a whole bunch of people started mining and then, oh, boom, all the 21 million coins were suddenly mined all in the space of 6 months or something. He had a very specific schedule, and to allow for that schedule to progress at the right pace, he created a system of a couple factors. One is the block reward, which is how much money is created and rewarded to the miners to create a block. And that reward, you can kind of think of it like how much gold is in the vein of gold that's being mined. And at first, the veins of gold, the miners are going to go, and there's all this low-hanging fruit. Like if you go back to the 1800s and the gold rush, the miners were able to go and reap huge amounts of gold from the initial veins that they went for, because they could easily pick the veins that they wanted, and they picked the ones that were very plentiful, and there were many of these plentiful veins. Over time, the miners had more competition, and they had to start going to smaller veins that produced less, and it got less and less and less over time. And this was a result of the competition. So there's a similar system that's set up in Bitcoin and other currencies, most other currencies, that creates a certain release pace that is adhered to no matter what. And so the block reward is a certain amount, and then it starts to get reduced over time. And that is one of the measures to control that release of currency. The other primary measure is the difficulty. And that is a mathematical number where the higher the number, the more difficult it is to do the mining. And that is driven upwards by more people mining, and it drops down again the fewer people are mining. Two types of mining. One is solo mining, which is where your computer or your device is mining for whatever currency by itself, solo mining. And if that is done, then if one manages to find a block and successfully write it on the blockchain, you get the entire reward. Solo mining becomes really difficult. And so what happens is miners will pool their resources together, and they will use what is called a mining pool. All of you are pooling your resources to be able to find blocks and to get the reward faster, but of course the reward is shared. And so if it's usually shared by proportionate to the amount of work you put in. You have a decentralized network of all these people all over the world who are volunteering their work, their electricity, and their computers' work to power this network, to allow the transactions to happen, to verify the transactions have happened, and to create that blockchain public ledger system, which is the basis of how it all works.